Hi, and welcome to another one of Innovation Visual's Digital Marketing Answered podcasts. I'm really happy to be joined here today by Huw Waters, who's Head of Marketing at Paragon DCX. Huw is a highly experienced marketing leader, having worked in brands as diverse as Panasonic, Motorola, Whirlpool, British Airways, all the way through to, in fact, working for marketing agencies. As a senior marketing leader, he set the direction and the plan for those businesses to position themselves to win against the competition time and again. So frequently he's worked in international settings where his background in languages has further enabled his excellence in communication. So very warm welcome to you, Huw, to the DMA podcast.
Thank you, Tim. Lovely to be here.
Well, it's great that you could spare us the time to join us, and I think it'd be worth maybe giving the people listening, stroke watching, a little bit about your professional journey to where you are now.
Sure, no worries. As you say, my background's in languages. I studied German and Japanese at university. Spent a number of years in Japan before coming back and doing a master's, and then I joined Panasonic. A lot of my roles up until having children have involved using Japanese and languages. And my first kind of corporate role was as a content marketing executive at Panasonic, and that got me straight into the world of digital, which I've continued ever since. Moving from there to a company called TTPcom, which was shortly taken over by Motorola. Then on to British Airways, where I headed up digital for the Middle East and Asia Pacific, everywhere from Dubai to Sydney. And then moving on to a number of other corporates, so Whirlpool, where I built up the e-commerce space in the UK to help sell dishwashers, washing machines, fridge freezers, and that.
Yeah.
And then moved a conscious move a little after that, after a couple of other roles, into the agency field, where for around 8 years now, I've worked across 3 different agencies as their head of marketing, looking at how we can build awareness and drive pipeline into the business.
Wow. Okay. So that's a
That's a whistle stop tour.
Yeah, but that's a hell of a background and some really interesting stuff that you've done there. And obviously within those roles, you've had to do a lot of planning, a lot of marketing planning. And so this podcast episode, it's about the marketing planning. So should we start with, if a marketing leader is struggling in terms of where they are with their current planning, what's the starting point, would you say?
I mean, the starting point always for me is with insight. So look at where you are today, look at where you want to go to, what's performing, what's not performing, and more importantly, what do your customers want? Go and talk to them. So, I'm in the B2B space today at the minute. So go to sales meetings, talk to sales, talk to clients about what they want, where they want to hear from you. In a consumer setting, you can do a similar thing. And just find out why, if you're in a situation where stuff isn't working, go and find out why it's not working. But talk to the customer first. That's where I always start with all planning.
That's interesting because I've heard people talk about starting with the data, but you're actually starting with the human and with the customer.
Absolutely. I mean, you should be, as a marketer in your role, tracking everything that you can anyway, and looking at the data and seeing what's working and seeing what's not working. But fundamentally, what it comes down to is you need to be delivering for customers in terms of raising awareness of your brand and your product, and enabling them to make the choice of your service or product when it comes to purchase. So if you don't understand what's making them tick, where they're finding about, where they're looking for information for your product or service, then your plan's not going to go anywhere.
Okay. Okay. So that's interesting. In terms of then the elements that you need, those building blocks for good marketing planning, can you expand upon those a little more?
Sure. So insight, as we said, first up. From there, I'd be looking at building up your strategy based on your current and past performance. What are your company's goals? What are your corporate goals? And therefore, what are your marketing objectives going to be based around that? Whether it's a revenue objective or it's a brand lift objective or market share objective, whatever it is, look at that. Then you can start building your plan around it. Key for me as you're starting to build a plan from afresh is stakeholder engagement. So talking to senior leaders, talking to team leads, colleagues, senior leadership across the business, get insight from them, get feedback from them on your thoughts and proposals, for two important reasons, really. One, you need to be communicating the plan to them and get their buy-in. But secondly, there's a potential that you're going to require additional resource outside your own team, which may involve some of them or some people within their team. So knowing what you have in mind from a marketing perspective for everyone across the business is really important.
Okay, that's interesting. So the communication starts inside, with making sure people understand what you want to do, but then also what you might be expecting from them to help you go on that journey.
Absolutely, and how they can contribute to that. Because at the end of the day, every department across an organization is going towards the same aim, which usually will be a lift in revenue and keeping customers happy. So everybody really needs to know from the coal face, which people often see as marketing being as the first direct contact with customers. People need to know what's going on.
Okay. You touched a bit on data and making sure that you're tracking everything that you can as a marketeer. How do you look at the data that you've got and prioritize where you should be looking in terms of that?
That's a really good question. I mean, it often comes back to what your tactics are and what channels you're using. And one of the things I always say to people, and one of the things I ensure in the roles that I'm at, is that you are able to track everything. That's the first thing before you're even looking at the data. Are you able to track everything back to your original objectives?
Okay.
Whether that's revenue, whether that's market share uplift, whether that's brand awareness uplift, share of voice. Once you have and you may not be able to, and if that's the case, then you're going to have to look at additional tools or technology, or hiring third parties such as yourselves, Tim, that may be able to help out with different channels that you're unable to do yourselves today internally, to get you into a place where you're able to measure and report everything. Once you can do that, you're in a much stronger position to look at, okay, what's working, what's not working. Let's dial down the stuff that's not working, dial up the stuff that is, maybe try something new to see if that works or not. I am a fond fan of being quite agile when it comes to marketing and trying stuff, seeing if it works, iterating on different things across a period of time, seeing what incremental changes can make to results.
Okay, so that's quite that's quite an interesting thing. So you're talking about doing some level of experimentation, and I'm a believer in experimentation and innovation, but how do you factor in that within your marketing plan? Because that's quite a challenge.
The biggest challenge, I think, is not with putting it in the plan. The biggest challenge is getting budgetary sign off for it.
Right.
So I will always, and always have done, put a line in my budget when it comes to it getting sign off for the year, an opportunity fund or an experimental fund.
Okay.
Now that doesn't always get signed off.
Okay.
However, there may be 3-4 key initiatives that you need to be looking at as a marketing team throughout the year, whether it's a product launch, a new service, a major campaign, which will get signed off.
Yeah.
Within the budget portion for that element, you can assign a certain amount for experimentation.
Okay.
Across a different channel or doing something different, whether it's with augmented reality or whatever it may be, just to try something else. So if you can't get the budget for the opportunity fund to do something completely different, look at a proportion of a bigger campaign or a product launch or a service launch to try something new. And then you're going to have the results. Based on that, you can go back to the business and say, do you know what? We tried it for this campaign. We tried it for this service. Did really well. We'd like to do more of it.
Okay. What sort of amounts do we need to be thinking about allocating for experiments and innovation then?
That's hard to talk about amounts. How long is a piece of string? But I would say if you could allocate 5 to 10% of your budget to do something a little bit new and experimental, then you're in a good place. And as I say, if you're testing it, iterating it, reviewing results as you go, and you discover actually that portion of my campaign, product launch, isn't working, turn it off.
Right.
Then apportion the money to something else.
Okay. So put some budget aside, squeeze it through past the powers that be who hold the purse strings.
It's the way of doing it.
Whether that's the overtly this is the experimentation fund, or whether it's part of those campaign things, you think, let's put some 5-10%, depending on where you are. I suppose it depends whether your budget's 1 million, 10 million, or
10,000,
500,000 or whatever, or 10,000. That's going to go in a different
exactly. And I think it really depends as well. Two things. It comes back to, again, what I was saying at the start. Your customers, are you working in a brand that lends itself well to doing something a bit new and innovative and making a noise in the market about it, or is it not?
Right.
In which case it wouldn't be viewed well by customers. And whatever the experiment is it going to hit your target market?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I suppose there's no point making a general sweeping statement here. No point targeting maybe the silver-haired surfers with a big in situ augmented reality campaign down Oxford Street. It's unlikely to be resonating with your target audience, kind of thing.
Exactly. There is a tendency, I think, in our industry for marketers to fall on the next new thing and get all excited and about it, and that's not a bad thing, but it only works for certain companies in certain industries, in certain brands. It really comes back down to who are your customers, what do they want, where do they play, where do they search for you, where do they buy from you.
And I think certainly from the way we operate with our clients, there's experimentation and innovation within areas that you're already doing. You don't have to go to the big new thing, which can sometimes be, inappropriate for what you're doing. But there's innovation within messaging. There's innovation within certain types of targeting. There's innovation in terms of how you then take people through a journey. Innovation in terms of how you deliver the proposition, kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot to be said there. Bringing you
Yeah.
back to one of the things you said about that experimentation, if it's not working, you can kill it off. On the whole thing of the tracking your plan, like what do you suggest as like best practice for how people should manage the plan's performance once it's in place? Assessing that. Is it something that you should be doing monthly, quarterly, weekly? I mean, what's your take on this?
It really depends on the kind of business you're in, and how frequent sales are. Being brutally honest, if you're in a retail environment or FMCG or e-commerce environment, you should be looking at things daily. If you're in a B2B environment, like me, where the time scales from an initial conversation to a sale could be, from 6 to 12 months,
Right.
then it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, I would say you need to be looking at stuff on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Is it working? Is it not? I believe you should be reporting on a minimum monthly basis
Yeah.
back to senior stakeholders, senior management, other people around the business that need to know
Yeah.
on everything that you're doing. And I think you should be revisiting your plan quarterly, if not more frequently, to see, is what I've put in place as an idea, as a plan for the next 12, 18 months, however long your plan is
Yeah.
it still valid based on where the business is today, based on
Yeah.
where how much sales are coming in, where the opportunity lies, or do I need to change something?
Okay.
Added to that, there's often things come externally. There's other opportunities that come across your plate as a marketeer where you think, actually, we should be doing that.
Okay.
Let's take a case in point for a B2B business where there's an event that you thoroughly believe that you should be at because it's got the right footfall in terms of your target market. It's got not too many competitors that will be there and be exhibiting or speaking at the event, and you believe it could get some cut through in the market and potentially produce some good leads for you, but you haven't put that in your plan or budgeted for it.
Okay.
By reviewing your plan on a monthly, quarterly basis, you can make a decision, say, okay, actually, I'd apportioned some money in my plan and in my budget against activity X. I'm now
Yeah.
going to stop doing that and I'm going to do this instead because it's better for the business.
Right. Okay. So don't be afraid to flex that plan. Don't be afraid to evolve the plan.
A plan is a plan. It can change, it can move. What doesn't move is your overall objectives and what you're trying to achieve.
Okay.
If you're always keeping that in mind,
Yeah.
then it makes the fear of changing a plan a little bit easier to take, because you can look at it quite holistically and say, well, actually, some of the stuff I'm not doing isn't quite working. Some of the stuff I had planned maybe isn't quite as good as some stuff that's just come across my table.
Yeah.
Let's do that instead because we think it's going to get us a better bang for our buck and achieve our objectives in a better and quicker way.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I mean, touching on that a bit more, how much would you say people should react to competitors? Because we sometimes have that conversation with clients and they go, oh, but our competitors doing X. Now I've got a bit of a view as to when you see competitor doing X, how you should behave. But what's kind of your take on that?
That's a great question. I smile because I have been in roles where I've been asked to do competitor research, which then and many marketers will have been this. You've done a significant bit of competitor research. It sits in a lovely Excel table or PowerPoint and goes nowhere. So my view is it's good to know what your competitors are doing.
Yeah,
Do you need to follow them? No. You should be doing what's right for your business and your customers.
yeah,
And for that, it's as simple as that for me.
yeah,
Because going back to that point about, you often see companies and often driven by marketing parts, let's go and do something. We'll jump on the bandwagon, do something shiny and new.
yeah,
And it creates a bit of buzz for a little while, but does it deliver results against your
yeah,
objectives?
yeah,
Is it worth a try? Yeah, maybe, but
yeah. Well, I have, yeah. I think we're aligned on this because I have two views. I have the right. You need to know what else is going on in the market. You need to understand the position, competitor activities, because particularly things like organic search, it is a top 10 competition. It's not about just what you do, it's about what everybody else is doing, so you do have to be aware of what others are doing. But when you see a competitor do something new, just because they're doing it doesn't mean that it's working, is my first answer. So like, how can we assess whether or not it's actually working? And then I do not like the policy of going, they're doing this, so we should do it, because my belief is that at Innovation Visual, we want to make our clients number one in their space, in their niche, right? Digitally, yeah? And you don't get to being number one by following somebody else. You have to be the person that other people follow. And some of our most successful clients and some of the things we're most proud of is where the innovation have seen us lead, and then you get the flattery of then the clients competitors are copying that. That's what I like to see. But yeah, it's I think we've got alignment there. Just one of the things I didn't talk about towards the start when you were talking about the ingredients is actually, given what you said about getting the insights, getting the internal stakeholder engagement, making sure all your reporting is not just numbers, but meaningful numbers going all the way back to the primary business goals. I didn't ask you about how much time you think should be put into marketing planning.
great question. And the honest answer is not enough.
Right.
It takes a huge amount of time, but it also doesn't stop,
Okay.
because there's not only do you have to come up with your plan for the next 12 months, and most companies work on those cycles. So you have a grand plan, a few strategies, few 3 or 4 big things that you want to achieve. You've got all the different channels you want to be doing, all the different activity you're going to be looking at for over the 12 months. Underneath all of that is all the planning you need to do for all of the campaigns, the launches, the channels, the content you need to produce. So it's when we talk about marketing planning, people can often think about, okay, well, that's just a page of stuff that we're going to do over the next year, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's ongoing every day. But to answer your question succinctly, what I would say is, when you're looking at that initial 12-month plan, spend time on it, do it properly, get the insight, work with people to let them know what's going on, fix those objectives, work together as a team as a marketing team, get everybody involved in having input into the plan, into the budget you're going to need for that year, so that everybody's brought on, is realistic about not only the time it's going to take to deliver all of those elements and the help you're going to need, but also how much resources you're going to need, because you only have limited resources. So there can be a tendency for people to try to do too much. It's my firm view is do less but do it better.
So
that doesn't mean to say you're not going to use 10 to 12 channels within your marketing mix to achieve what you want to do. It means let's not have 8 product launches a year. Let's not focus on 7 different target industries. Let's have 2. And do them really, really, really well. Because just doing those 2 or 3 or 4 is hugely time consuming for a marketing department, plus all of the other people that are involved with it as well.
It's interesting you say that, because I mean, you've worked in some marketing teams with huge amounts of resources, but even then you're very aware that actually focus and doing things really well gets you more results than doing lots of things averagely, should we say.
And actually it's a really good insight. I think it's even more important when you have bigger teams, because other people are relying on you. You're all relying on each other. Everyone's got to be really clear about what they want to do. Now, I've worked in a business where it's just me. I'm the sole marketeer. That's a little bit easier because I know my own limitations and what I can deliver in a day, a week, a month. When you've got a team of 7, 10, 50, it's even harder.
Okay. Interesting. In the title, it says what not to do as well. We haven't mentioned we've talked a lot about what we should be doing to get best practice on marketing planning. Tell us some of the things that you think shouldn't be done.
Shouldn't be done.
And obviously you've never done any of these things yourself, so it's obviously what you've heard. But what shouldn't people do when they're doing the marketing planning?
Well, it's almost flipping it on its head, isn't it? It's starting with your tactics. Let's go and because it can happen in smaller businesses where someone very senior or the CEO says we need to do more email marketing. We need to be doing some Google ads. And very often, a more junior marketer will roll over and say, okay, no worries, and just start it with no objectives in mind, no plan behind it, no reasoning behind it about why they're doing it. Not tying it back to what the customer wants. Is it even, is it where the customer's going to be seeing them? Is it going to have an effect on the objective? That's a very, very common thing. So that's definitely a what not to do. I think a key thing for me as well is, and again, it comes back to this thing I keep saying about knowing your customer, is not matching your channel choice to your audiences. Where do they play? How do they choose you as a brand, as a product, as a service? And if you don't know, ask them. Ask your existing clients, ask your existing customers, do some focus groups, do some market research to find out those things, so that you're not wasting your money on ramping up a Google Ads campaign or ramping up a new email marketing campaign and wasting money when that's not where your customers are and not where they want to hear you.
So starting with the tactics, failing to follow insights. I think also in the first one, blowing with the wind of that, the CEO who says we should do,
Yeah,
bang down to
and I
people
think
there.
there's the bigger danger, and it happens in every role is not finding that right mix between uh, brand marketing and sales activation.
Okay.
So, how much money are you going to spend on driving awareness of you as a company, your brand, your products, your services, versus activity that's actually going to generate sales, whether
Yeah.
direct or indirect?
Yeah.
And for it can be different across industries, but the fact of the matter is, if people don't know who you are and what you do,
Yeah.
you aren't going to generate any sales. So the two go hand in hand, and it's just having the right mix, because there can be a tendency, I think, often coming from the top, because
Yeah.
sales are important, and we're in marketing, we're here to deliver numbers. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
Um, but having too higher preference on tactical marketing activity versus some more brand awareness generating activity can, in the long term, be a
Yeah.
detriment to overall sales over a long
Okay.
period of time.
Okay. That's interesting because you've worked in, across consumer and B2B, and you've worked in a lot of different sectors where I imagine that there's a different perception of what brand awareness means. I mean, I'm thinking back to, TTP Motorola days, that was very much, niche industrial kind of electronic. So you're saying that all types of businesses need to have a view and a handle on their brand awareness piece.
Absolutely. There's you pick up, it was a very TTP kind of very niche industry, licensing wireless intellectual property. Probably we dealt with 90% of our customer base already. Everybody knew us because of what we delivered, and best in the world at that time. Um, but there's always going to be new customers that haven't heard of you,
Yeah,
and you need to get in front of them, um, in whatever industry you're going to be in.
yeah,
So whether it's you spend 30% of your budget on raising awareness in brand activity and 70% on tactical,
yeah,
or whether you spend 60% of your budget on brand and 40% of your budget on tactical, will
yeah,
really depend on whether you're more a consumer type of business or a B2B type of
yeah,
business. If you're more the B2B type of business, which I'm in today, you necessarily have to spend more time on activity that raises awareness of your brand in the market,
yeah,
because you need to get people to know who you are and what you do.
yeah. How do you view that, particularly in the light of the the generative AI tools that we've got access to as marketeers, creating more and more market noise? What within the planning? I know it's probably taken it slightly outside of scope, but how do you see that affecting it? Is it something that you should plan for more brand activity because there's more noise in the market, or is it actually your plan should evolve and take that into account in a different way?
That's a good question. I mean, as I say, all plans should evolve, and can evolve at any time. I mean, I have quite probably a harsh view on generative AI
Yeah,
and how that relates to marketing. Um, I think it can be of help for sure, but I don't
yeah,
think we should be solely reliant on it. So, as an example, the copy it produces is quite, enter whatever expletive you want here.
yeah,
Um, it's not good enough for purposes. Um, where I think it can help is to help generate ideas
yeah,
for your plans, for your content. Um, where I think it can also help is certainly some of the generative AI tools that can help produce imagery
Yeah.
based around your brand palette,
Yeah.
your colorings. That's a real game changer, I think, for marketeers, where especially where marketing teams where they don't have design skills within the team have been reliant on either design skills within a different department in the same business or third parties outside. That's a real game changer for us. But is it going to make a difference in terms of, you know, how much brand versus tactical activity we do? I don't think so.
Okay.
I see it more as an internal planning help tool right now.
Yeah.
That's being honest.
Yeah. No, that's a good insight. I think with, you see a lot comes across your table, given the organisation that you work with, and also the organisations you've worked with before as well. So in terms of then the outcome of, marketing planning, this conversation, can you kind of sum up for the people listening who are typically marketing and revenue leaders or aspirational leaders in that field? Can you just sort of summarize what they should be doing, what they should be avoiding, just to sort of wrap it up nicely for us?
Sure, I will do my best.
Yeah.
Focus on the customer. That's number one. Get the insight as to how things are going today, in terms of your performance, what's working, what's not working. Involve everybody you need to across the business on what your plan is, what it's going to deliver, when you're going to do things, and why. And ensure that you're able to track, measure everything that as much as possible. You can't track and measure everything, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And ensure you're reporting on it back to the business and back to all of those stakeholders you've involved along the way. And finally, coming back to a couple of things we previously touched on, is make sure you find the time to do it properly.
Yeah.
And secondly, don't be afraid to change things if things are not working or new things come across your desk that you think, actually, that sounds a bit better. We'll do that instead.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a great place to finish. Do it properly, give it the time, and don't be afraid to change. I think there's a famous, is it a famous Eisenhower quote or something like that, that every plan changes as soon as you go into battle. And so marketing's a bit like a war zone sometimes, isn't it? In terms of
It is.
nobody's
Nobody's ever lost their job for changing a plan.
No, indeed. Good stuff. Well, Huw, been an absolute pleasure as always talking to you. So thank you for spending the time to be with us on Digital Marketing Answered today.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me, Tim.
And thanks also to all those people that have been listening and watching, depending on the platform of choice. Please do like, subscribe, comment, rate it, all of those good things which help other people discover Digital Marketing Answered from Innovation Visual. And thank you for your attention, and we look forward to having you on our next episode. And thank you again, Huw.